You know, when you're wrong, most of the time it's best to admit it right up front. And honestly, I have to say that I was wrong about the Republicans, because I didn't think that they were stupid enough to pass this American Health Care Act. Now, I'm talking about the Republicans in the House of Representatives. And as it's been indicated, every last one of them that voted for that bill is going to have a serious problem. Now, some more of a serious problem than others, because this particular bill that they just passed, if, and I do say if, it were to go into effect, it would start kicking the behinds of all the people that vote for them right at the beginning of next year, just in time for the elections. Since, as you all know, House of Representative members are elected every 2 years. There would be a bloodbath. Now, the only thing that's going to more than likely save them is the fact that the bill has to go through the Senate, and if there are any changes in the bill, it has to then go to a reconciliation committee, who they do whatever they do to bring the two bills together, because at that point there would be two bills. And then the House would have to vote on it again, and the Senate would have to vote on it again. So the only way that this possibly could have gone through is if the bill went through clean. And that's not going to happen. Number one, even the Republicans in the Senate have stated that that bill is basically dead on arrival in its current form. So they're going to make a zillion changes in it. Number two, they need 60 votes in order to pass that bill in the Senate. And unless Mitch McConnell is thinking about declaring the nuclear option again for all legislation, there's no way in the world that the bill is going to pass. So the Senate is pretty much going to save itself, potentially, but the House is going to be a free-for-all in 2018. Now, a couple of things. The members that voted for it in the House, I don't know what these guys were thinking, but you're going to have two House members that are going to be interviewed by Katie Tur, and both of them are going to, I don't want to say lie, but let's just say that they are going to deal in alternate reality. The first one voted for the bill, and when Katie Tur pointed out to him that they did exactly what the Democrats did when they passed the Affordable Care Act, he's just not going to be able to see it. So again, alternate reality. The second member who voted against the bill, he also is going to be living in a world of alternate reality. But anyway, let's get to it.
White House and congressional Republicans took a victory lap this afternoon, but the Republican plan to replace Obamacare passed by just the slimmest of margins. 217 Republicans voted for the bill, just one more than the 216 they needed. 20 Republicans voted no. And we have one Republican, on each side of the bill now here with us to dive into what just went down. Joining me first is Republican Congressman Collins of New York, who voted for the health care bill this afternoon. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me.
Good to be with you, Katie.
I want to ask a little bit about the process here.
Sure.
When health care was first being debated, when Obamacare was first being debated, there was a lot of talk about not being transparent enough. Take a listen to what your leadership said back then.
I don't think we should pass bills that we haven't read, that we don't know what they cost.
We're left with party line votes in the middle of the night, a couple of sweetheart deals to get it over the finish line, and a truly outraged public.
And look at how this bill was written. Can you say it was done openly? With transparency and accountability? Without backroom deals and struck behind closed doors? Hidden from the people? Hell no, you can't!
Now, I just wish that they could have gotten John Boehner on the floor to read the Democratic response, because he would have said the same exact thing as far as the passage of this Republican bill. So I'm just laughing my butt off. But funny that this particular congressperson, even after seeing and hearing all this, he can see no similarity whatsoever, which is a joke.
Have you read the bill? Have you read the reconciliation bill? Have you read the manager's amendment? Hell no, you haven't.
You know, you could just change their names, and I feel like I could hear exactly the same criticism coming from Democrats today. What's the deal, Congressman? There's no CBO score on this bill. This was a party line vote, a slim majority at that. Sweetheart deals, we had the Upton amendment, $8 billion yesterday after Upton met with President Trump. 50% of Americans are not confident in this bill. It sounds just like what your Republican leadership said back then.
Well, I couldn't disagree more, Katie. In fact, we've been working on this bill for over 6 years.
Now, that is a lie. And how these guys could come out here and lie like that, it kills me. If you've been working on that bill for 6 years, okay, then how come you couldn't get that particular bill to the floor initially for a vote? This particular bill that you are talking about at this point was a creation over the past 60, 75 days. It couldn't get through the first time, so you went through and made it even worse in order to get it through the second time. And basically what you did was you gave what you consider cover to some of the more conservative members of your caucus by kicking in, I think it was about $5 billion to hopefully cover people with pre-existing conditions. That is nowhere near enough money. But there must be some kind of a rule when people are interviewing people, obviously not to call them a liar, but to state the specific facts when you're wrong. And they just don't do it, because if they had, you'd be looking like a horse's ass right now.
Ever since Obamacare came in, we have been passing bills and marking up bills that then came together into what we now call the American Health Care Act. But this was not done over a 2-week or 3-week period. This has been 6 years of hard work, as we knew Obamacare would fail, and failing and fail. It has. Also, we have a CBO score saving well over $100 billion. Sure, there were a couple of tweaks at the end. We'll get a final score that may, knock a couple of percent off of that, but we're comfortable that we know there's huge savings, and by the time the Senate is working with this, we will have the final score. So savings over $100 billion, guaranteed cost savings when it comes to premiums of 10%. A bill we've been working on for years. So this is so very different than what happened with Obamacare.
Congressman,
and of course we had a party line vote.
See, now that the only thing that he's right about is the quote unquote savings to the budget of $100 billion. But that savings is because they cut Medicaid by 25%. Or I believe it's a little over $900 billion that they cut Medicaid by. And then they turn around and give a giant tax cut to the upper, I think it's 2% of the people in America, the upper 2%. And they do that with the full knowledge that they're going to throw 20 plus million people off of the ability to obtain health care.
Way Nancy Pelosi was going to let a single member of her conference vote to repeal Obamacare. The
It wasn't just a party line vote, though. There were a number of Republicans. 20 Republicans voted no on this. 20 Republicans.
Yeah, so we had 93% of our conference on board, 93%. And we're talking about states like New Jersey, California, and Pennsylvania, which are entirely different than Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, and Texas.
Do those Republican voters not matter in those states?
Well, when you say that, no, everyone matters. All politics are local. We did have 20 members for one reason or another, some from the Freedom Caucus, some from the Tuesday group, and some not in either group. But we had 93% of our conference come together on a bill that had no support from the Democrats, but it was a campaign promise the president made and every one of us made to replace the failure of Obamacare, where today 94 out of 99 counties in Iowa don't have an insurance carrier at all.
Part of the reason is because of the lack of confidence in Obamacare, because of the way that Republicans have gone about gutting regulation and also saying that they were going to repeal it. Part of the reason that there is only one health care provider or no health care providers is because of the insurance markets and insurance providers pulling out because of what Republicans were, the rhetoric they were putting forth, and what they were
Katie,
doing.
you can't say that. They pulled out when they thought Hillary Clinton was going to be elected. This didn't happen in the last 4 months. You go back a year ago and you look at what happened in Arizona. That was with President Obama and the expectation that Hillary Clinton would be elected, and they were down to only one insurance carrier in Arizona.
All right, and they keep bringing up Arizona and Kansas and these various places where the insurance companies basically were pulling out. Okay, the insurance companies that were pulling out for reasons other than what he's stating. Aetna wanted to merge with Humana, and the government told them that they couldn't do it. They decided, because they couldn't get their way, that they were going to and themselves try to sabotage the Affordable Care Act by pulling out. Now, if the states have been righteous where they pulled out from, what they should have told them is, if you pull out of this market, do not look to re-enter this market for at least the next 5 years. So they would have played a game of chicken, and since insurance companies are highly profitable, they could say whatever they want. They cry about their losses in certain areas, but they make a ton of money. They would have made a business decision to stay in. But because the Republicans were jumping up and down, screaming blue murder, and there was no gun to the heads of these insurance companies to stay, obviously they pulled out. There are a lot of reasons why the insurance companies did what they did. But the funny thing about it is, as soon as these guys get in here and they get rid of the requirement to insure with pre-existing conditions, that they put the lifetime caps back in, and a couple of the other goodies that the insurance companies want to see, like risk pools, high risk pools, you will see these insurance companies come running back in. But the thing about that is the people who are going to be in those high-risk pools are not going to be able to afford the insurance because of the ridiculous levels of the premiums.
Even yet later during the year, others pulled out. So no, this was the abject failure of Obamacare. It has nothing to do, and you can't say that they pulled out because a few months back we elected President Trump. You can't connect those.
That's not what she said. What she said was the rhetoric from the Republican Party as far as going after the Affordable Care Act. She didn't say because Donald Trump got elected.
Say to the AARP, to the American Medical Association, to the American Hospital Association, all of which have said that this bill is not one that's going to protect those with pre-existing conditions. It is not going to protect the elderly. They're concerned about it. It's not going to protect the poor. What do you say to them? Are they wrong in their assessment?
Yeah, they're absolutely wrong. Clearly, they have not read the bill. Again, we're talking about
Have you given them the time to read the bill?
Well, sure. I mean, our bill's been out there for over a month.
Now, see, that's a lie. They just actually came together with the final bill, okay? The final markup of the bill. They just came together with that 8 o'clock last night. So as far as the ability to read the bill, yeah, if they grabbed that bill at 8 o'clock last night, they could have read it, okay? But as far as it being out there a month ago, hell no, it wasn't there.
There's been a few amendments that just came out. They're very small amendments, by the way. So if they did not...
He calls a small amendment allowing states the ability to opt out of providing all of the care that is currently being provided, and an amendment creating the high risk pool, okay, again, that the insurance companies wanted, and the funding of that high risk pool, quote unquote, with like $5 billion over, I believe it's a 7 or 9 year period, which basically is nothing. They need, if they were really serious in funding that high risk pool to help people get insurance, it wouldn't be $5 billion, it would be closer to $50 billion.
Read it, that's of their own doing. And clearly, when you look at pre-existing conditions, those folks are covered. They will continue to be covered. And this is, again, some exaggeration that just is not based in any reality that I'm living in when anyone would say we have disadvantaged someone with pre-existing conditions. First of all, anyone who has insurance will continue to have insurance.
They will continue to have insurance if they can pay the premium, which are going to go through the roof.
So those who may have had a pre-existing condition that got insured under Obamacare continue to have that coverage.
I have yet to see a single piece of analysis that says the $8 billion Upton Amendment is enough to make sure that those with pre-existing conditions in states that do choose to get a waiver and are approved for a waiver, that is enough to cover those, all of the patients that might have pre-existing conditions. Have you seen different analysis than I have?
Yeah, certainly do, because let's talk about what it is. These are not people who are currently insured who have catastrophic health conditions like cancer or heart conditions. So what are we talking about?
That's exactly who you're talking about, because they are going to see hugely increased amounts in premiums and also more than likely deductibles.
Individual exchange, which is only 7% of America. It would have to be a state that opted into the waiver. We're not sure any states are going to opt in. And if they did opt in for the waiver, this would have to be a person who currently is not insured, someone who is subsequently diagnosed with cancer or some other condition. And then what we have is money to backstop the extra cost that could be charged in a waiver state for a maximum of 12 months. That's the most it could be charged, and we've got money into it to cover it. So anyone who has actually read the bill will see that we are protecting those individuals who currently don't have insurance, who live in a state where they might have a waiver and then would have to pay a higher cost for up to 12 months. We have the money to make sure that they would not be paying it. It would come out of that pool. So we have absolutely protected those that subsequently will be diagnosed with a pre-existing condition, because those that currently have it are already insured, and that continues.
All right, so now let me break that down for you. First of all, when he's talking about that money going to help pay for the insurance, what is going on with this particular bill is if you currently are uninsured, okay, and then all of a sudden you find that you got something and you go for insurance in order to obviously help you, the insurance companies are going to be able to charge you a premium on top of your regular premium. And I believe the amount is approximately 30% per month for 12 months. That's where the 12 months comes in. Then you no longer have to pay that extra premium. You drop down to the regular premium that everybody else that's in that high risk pool, quote unquote, is supposed to pay. So, in other words, let's just say that your total annual premium is like 10 grand, which is ridiculous. But let's say it's 10 grand. You would end up having to pay an additional $3,000 for your health insurance for the 12 months, and I'm saying 10 grand for a year. So instead of 10,000 at the end of 12 months, you would drop down to the 10 if it's still 10, and more than likely on the high risk pool, it'll probably be closer to 11 or 12, depending on what they think they can absolutely get away with. So he basically did not totally explain how it works. Okay, but as far as the help for the people who are already on the insurance and are not getting charged that extra 30%, there pretty much is no help, because they're talking about issuing refundable tax credits. That was tried before, it didn't work before, and it's not going to work now.
100% guarantee that, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Congressman Collins. Appreciate your time, sir.
Okay, Katie, always good to be with you.
Absolutely. House Republican leaders are making some big promises today about what this health care bill will do.
That's what the American Health Care Act is all about. It makes health care more affordable. It takes care of our most vulnerable, and it shifts power from Washington back to the states.
We talked a lot about protecting people with pre-existing conditions in the context of this bill, and there are so many things, multiple layers in our bill that we passed today that not only protect people with pre-existing conditions, but actually focus real targeted money on lowering premiums for families with pre-existing conditions. We're going to unshackle, build an economy, let people have greater choice in their health care, and protect pre-existing conditions.
Joining me now is Republican Congressman Leonard Lance of New Jersey. Hillary Clinton won narrowly in his district, and he voted against the bill today. Congressman, first off, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Katie.
So your colleagues in Republican leadership, they say that absolutely pre-existing conditions will be covered. You just heard Congressman Collins guarantee it, and it's not going to make their premiums rise. Do you agree with that assessment?
Chris Collins is a close friend of mine, and certainly we all want to make sure that nobody is denied coverage based upon a pre-existing condition. But Katie, I prefer the original language and not the language as was voted today on the floor of the House.
What was that original language?
The original language said that there would be no denial of coverage based upon a pre-existing condition. It did not modify in any way the original language in the legislation that was passed in 2010.
So when your Republican colleagues come out and they guarantee that, and they say that the high-risk pools will work and that $8 billion is enough to cover pre-existing conditions, you don't agree with that. Do you go to them and do you say, listen, I'm really concerned about this. I'm concerned about the promise we made to voters that we are going to make sure that they stay covered. How can there be such a disagreement within your own caucus?
I hope that the Senate will address this issue, and I'm sure that the bill as it proceeds through the Senate will be different from the current version that passed the House today.
See, and that's what a lot of these guys are hanging their hats on and hoping, is that they know that this is a piece of crap bill, and they are praying that the Senate can clean it up enough that they can still turn around and pass it in the House. Okay, but that it doesn't destroy the American people. And that just ain't gonna happen.
Urge our Democratic colleagues to come to the table to work with us, and so far it has been only one party that's been working on this issue, our party. And
see, now that's a bunch of crap, because if you recall, or if you don't, let me remind you, President Obama went on national TV and said to the Republicans, if they could come up with a bill that was better than the Affordable Care Act, he would support the bill. So when they say there was nobody willing to work on the bill, that just flat out is not true.
I hope and expect that the Democrats will come to the table, because I think there is a responsibility to work together in a bipartisan capacity to improve the system, because, as you know, the exchanges are not doing well in many parts of the United States.
Do you believe this legislation was too rushed?
I think that we should have awaited a CBO score regarding the legislation.
Republicans say that they got 2 CBO scores on this. I just got a message from a staffer and a Republican for one of the congressmen saying, they had 2 CBO scores on this. Did they have 2 adequate CBO scores on this legislation?
The original score that I read indicated that there would be many challenges with the legislation, and that was the principal reason that I didn't favor it. And I would like to see an up-to-date CBO score, and I hope as this moves in the Senate, proceeds to the other side of the Capitol, that there can be an update on that.
So in 2010, you voted a bunch of times to repeal Obamacare and parts of it. So if you did that so many times back when Republicans were not in charge of this, why are you not doing it today? What's the difference?
The difference is we have a Republican president who's willing to work with us, and the reason I voted as I did when Barack Obama was president was to get his attention that the exchanges are not working well, and he was not able or willing, in my judgment, to work with us, the Republican majority in the House and the Senate, to try to improve the situation. And President Trump wants to improve the situation, as do I, and now we're trying to work with the White House, and I hope that our Democratic colleagues here on Capitol Hill will work with us as well.
So what he just said is he wasn't voting to repeal the Affordable Care Act for any reason other than political. He wanted to get the president's attention, and that's why he voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. A lot of these guys, once they start talking, they really do reveal exactly what their priorities are. And he just told you that all of those votes to repeal the Affordable Care Act, they weren't votes to help out the American people. They were all political in nature. And I'll let you make your own assumption as to why they did what they did.
Last year, when you were voting to repeal this bill, you said this: "I believe it was important that Congress keep its promise to the American people and take the repeal effort all the way to the end of the process under our Constitution." That doesn't seem to jive with what you just said.
I think that we do have the responsibility to improve the situation, and certainly I think that we have to work with the President of the United States. And I think it was unfortunate during the Obama presidency that the bill was passed on a party line vote, and I hope that we can learn from that lesson, and I would imagine in the Senate that there will have to be bipartisan cooperation.
If you believe there should be bipartisan cooperation, why was there not more outreach done to Democrats? Why did the president himself not reach out to anybody on the Democratic side of the House to say, hey, listen, let's find something that works for both sides?
I think that the president is trying to reach out to both sides, as he has said.
When did he do that?
I would imagine as we move to the Senate, Katie, I would imagine that he would try to work with the Democrats, but the Democrats, Katie, have to be willing to work with him.
See, and that's when you know somebody is straight out full of crap. Donald Trump has not reached out to any Democrats. Donald Trump, as a matter of fact, has disparaged Schumer and Pelosi repeatedly. So if that's what this guy believes is a reach out to the Democrats, we have completely different definitions.
But it was very unfortunate this afternoon when the Democrats were chanting on the floor of the House. I thought that was unfortunate and not in the tradition of bipartisan cooperation. And when I was in a similar position in 2010, I certainly would not have conducted myself that way.
Would you have gone to the Rose Garden to celebrate a legislative win even before it's signed into law, even before it goes to the Senate?
I was not invited to the Rose Garden because I was one of 20 Republicans not to vote for the legislation. I certainly think that there should be bipartisan cooperation, and that will require the actions not only of the Majority Leader, Senator McConnell, but of the Minority Leader, Senator Schumer, as well.
Congressman Leonard Lance of New Jersey. Thank you very much, Congressman. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Katie.
All right, so in closing, you're going to see a lot of commercials, and I'm not even going to take the time to put what I think are going to be turned into commercials on, but you're going to see commercials, one with Jimmy Kimmel talking about his kid at pre-existing conditions. You're going to see tons of commercials using that. You're going to see a ton of commercials with all of those Republicans around Trump lauding the fact that they were taking health care away from 20 million people. You're going to see commercials up the gazoo. I would be surprised if the Democrats talk about anything over the next 2 years, other than the fact that the Republicans are all for tax cuts for the rich and screwing the middle class and the poor. But, you know, we're going to see.